Hey guys, old sleepy reader here, Damien, with a little come along with me and take a look at what I did this afternoon kind of video. Lots of shaky cam and amazingly bad film, amazingly bad filming, probably bad editing too. Amazing that I'm doing amazing that I'm doing any editing at all. But this afternoon I went downtown to Floating World Comics and then on to Powell's City of Books, the main bookstore for Powell's. And yeah, I was glad to have the free time. I'd spent most of the day with kids, and then my wife took over and I went downtown. This part of downtown is the I guess the northern segment away from sort of a northern wing of downtown, away from the really central part of downtown Portland, but still what I would consider downtown. Neighborhoods called Chinatown, which mostly the Chinese businesses are all gone, and I assume a record store, Chinese residents were long gone before that. And a publisher. Also called Old Town, and then a section also called the Pearl District, which is where there used to be a lot of warehouses, but now are a lot of apartment buildings and shops.
I've actually tried to film here before.
Floating World, when you first enter, you see these tables with books on them, and they are not, for the most part, your usual comic shop comic books. They are small press books or more unusual indie books. Right there I spotted something that I had wanted and realized I had forgotten about, but so really glad to go there. And here I was just trying to show, but it's not very clear, they have a whole bunch of issues of Raw magazine up in frames. And they had a few other issues for sale for $50 a piece. But I kind of felt like Raw magazine is like the spiritual lodestone, the guiding light of this comic book store in a way. Although really, it has comics for everybody in every type. I was just looking over the kind of underground and zine section. And here is a long series of bookshelves where they put what they consider their most literary comics, I guess. That's what the girl told me later. When I first came in, they were playing Grateful Dead music, and later much cooler, more metal-y sounding music. But I had meant to ask them what it was, but then forgot. I did realize as I was going along, it's not so easy to browse at the books when you're holding a phone, filming with one hand, and trying to look at books with just one hand. So you see me kind of struggling here and there to do that. But you just get to see me browsing and what books catch my attention. I thought this one looked really interesting, and having realized it was hard to flip through it with one hand, I took it over a place to put it down. Unfortunately, it wasn't really comics on the inside. It was just art, but I guess comics-related art. I'm sort of realizing, like in my recent review or comic book thoughts where I talked about that Fantagraphics book now, and then looking around this store, there's kind of an intersection where art books and comic books meet, and sometimes there are more art books and less comic books. And that's not my first choice of the kind of book, but some of them are interesting, certainly. But I'm spending a lot of money, I guess I want the ones that tell stories and have narratives of some sort and play with the actual form of panels on a page in a more cohesive way, perhaps. Anyway, didn't mean to rant on about that. I could have browsed even longer than I did, but I browsed a pretty long time in the shop. I could have spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars. There are so many interesting things here. I was sort of, as I was going through, trying to figure out, well, what kind of stuff could I order online easily and, from in-stock trades or Amazon, and what makes more sense to buy here. And I kind of did a mix of the two, but still, I feel like I left hundreds of books that I might have enjoyed bringing home with me on the shelves. I'll have to go back more often. A couple of reasons I don't go back, come here that often, is mostly my dislike of going downtown at this point in Portland's development. Partially, like parking's really hard and you have to pay a lot of money for the parking. And I don't know, downtown just doesn't, I used to hang out in downtown all the time. I mean, I lived very close to downtown and worked downtown, but for some reason I just kind of avoid it now. Here you can see they're very well stocked with the standard comics. Well, I think if you're looking for trades, you'll probably find more of like Image trades than you will Marvel trades. But they carry just about every mainstream and mainstream indie comic along with their more zine-like and art-like comics. So certainly if this store were closer to me, this would be the store for me to have my account at. Yeah, that's the other reason I don't come down here so much, is I have no discount here. I can get discounts online. I can get somewhat of a discount at my really local comic shop that actually a pretty good discount at my local comic book shop where I have a pull list. Other shops I usually go to when they have a big sale. To my knowledge, Floating World doesn't have those big sales, where trades are 25% off and all comics are 50% off and the like. Of course, they don't deal much in back issues. I don't think I showed it to you, but they have a big dollar back issue section, which is pretty much just the unsold direct market floppies. So yeah, if they don't sell, they eventually become worth $1 at best. I was really attracted to this Planet of the Apes Green Lantern cover, but the art on the inside wasn't similar to that Silver Age Green Lantern stuff, unfortunately. Coming up here, there's a new comic called Willow out from Floating World. Floating World is a publisher along with a comic shop and a record store. And so they published this Willow comic, and there was the original art from it on the wall there. Wish I had taken a little more time to shoot that, now that I think of it. And they publish a bunch of other stuff. I guess a recent book called Fonte Bukowski by Noah Van Sciver, and they publish some of the Charles Fortune work. I think they're the publishers of Slasher, or at least they keep it on their shelf of things they publish. I was looking through this and realizing this was some kind of underground artist, but nothing in here as shocking as in Savage Dragon, or as quite as pushing the edge for me in terms of what my daughter should be able to see. I'd like to buy this book sometime, but I didn't here. I think it's a Fantagraphics book. I think I can order it online for a lot less money. But I am kind of telling myself I should come down and spend more money at Floating Worlds, because it's definitely the kind of shop, you would want to stay open. It's also probably what people imagine all the comic book shops in Portland are like, but really most of the comic book shops here in Portland are pretty darn mainstream. They have their share of Image comics and everything, but other than this Floating World shop, there's nothing really so hipsterish, if that's the word, other than this store. I wish there were a few more like it, actually, particularly more accessible to me. But I also kind of imagined, as I was shopping here, being here with Ress and Comic Crack and a few other people from maybe Earl Grey or something, see what books they would buy here and how broke they would go. So yeah, and it's interesting how they'll mix books and zines and obscure things with more mainstream things in places. Then I discovered there was this little kids section, which maybe I should explore more next time, in case there's some things I aren't normally aware of that my daughter might like. Although she's kind of inundated with all the comics I buy, as it is. Yeah, so I was just having a lot of fun looking If I'd had 2 hands, I guess I would have opened more comics. But after shooting this, I then browsed all around again and slowly picked out things to purchase. I only ended up spending about $90. So I think I grabbed this Trump book, wishing I could look inside, but it's all wrapped in plastic. Because it looks like one of those Marvel oversized comics from the 70s. Wonder how many people still even get that. And then later I looked through this Black Hole artist edition. It's amazing. I really want that now. Although, yeah, I love those artist editions, but it's so hard to choose which ones to spend my money on. Even though I have so many, I only have a small fraction of the ones they've put out. So there you go. That's Floating World.
Just came out of Floating World, and you probably saw some footage that I took. Hopefully it came out okay. And I spent quite a bit of time in there. Eventually I just had to make myself choose something. I was trying to make a certain amount of calculations of what I could get elsewhere and what I couldn't. But I could have spent hundreds of dollars in there. But the thing is, there's no discounts or anything, right? But so I'll show you what I grabbed. I should come back here more often, but I just don't. So I grabbed this zine called Twilight of the Bat. And it looks like it is some kind of play on Batman. Looks like we got kind of a hipster bat here, or maybe a street bat. So yeah, they're going after Batman in this zine or whatever it is. Then I grabbed some more Steve Ditko stuff. It's hard for me to remember which Steve Ditko comics I have. This is number 24. His main zine just has its number as its title. So the title of this is number 24, which confused the woman at the store for a little bit because she had to look up each book in their computer, I guess, and make a little inventory of it. Then I got this oddity. Whoops, not that. That's not what I was thinking. Disorganized here. Everything's falling around in my car. Maybe not a good place to shoot a haul video. But hey, the Bagging and Boarding bad boy always does a good job of it. But my comics are sliding around. So this is from the Steve Ditko Publishing Company, or zine company, is the Covers series, the Covers series, Robin Sider and Steve Ditko, from September 2010. But it looks like it's just a cover gallery. And I thought, I'm on that. Let's look at some Ditko and some nice big obscure Ditko covers. So this is very cool, in my opinion. And then I picked up what I take to be a black and white reprint. I mean, all that was ever color was the cover of the first issue of Mr. A, I believe. I'll have to double check. But if that's what I've got, there is a friend out there that wants the first issue of Mr. A, I believe. So we'll see if I've gotten him that. And this comic just looked good to me. And a lot of the zines there, I'd look through something and say, whoa, this is really cool. And it's like 16 pages. And then I flip to the back and it's $10. And I couldn't bring myself to buy a lot of those. So when I saw this and thought it looked really cool and it had a cover price of $4.99, I grabbed it. And it's actually a color comic. Maybe this is one I could have gotten elsewhere. I don't know. But I've never noticed it elsewhere. So yeah. And then this zine also had a clear and easy to find price on it. More like an underground comic, I guess. This was $4.99 also. It's black and white on the inside. Looks pretty cool. I saw a whole bunch of undergrounds, and I thought, God, I wish I knew which ones Comic Crack doesn't have. But I just can't keep track of all of that. And I I wasn't in the mood of picking up old undergrounds right now. I wanted to try to pick up newish things for the most part, or what I hope is newish things. This thing, Crickets, comic books, Banana Life. I don't know. I don't know what this is. It looked kind of appealing, and again had a price that was within affordability. It was $8. But there were some things that looked really cool, and then they were $15, $20, $25. And I'm just not going to risk that much money on some just comic zine oddity that I am just not familiar with. So hopefully I made some good picks there. And then I bought 2 actual books. One of which I could, in fact, I think I was thinking of buying this on Amazon for about 30% off, but I said, well, I want this now, so I got Lone Sloan Delirious. I just have one Lone Sloan book. I think there's 3 or 4 of them, so looking forward to digging into that. And then something that I really wanted bad, scuffed up. It was the least scuffed up edition of Shaky Kane, the complete deadline strips of Shaky Kane, Good News Bible. I really don't know what the faith for life. It only has a British price on it. For the Americans, they charge $35. I don't know if that was a good deal or not. The British price was £25, so $10 more. That's probably a good price. This almost just looks like a mishmash of images rather than actual comic strips. But anything by Shaky Kane is worth it for me, and kind of nice to have this really large, thick Shaky Kane book. So I'm psyched for that. But I hope Shaky Kane keeps doing more of these one-shot sort of spoofy comics that he's been doing for Image. Those have been a big favorite of mine. So there you go. Oh look, Captain America's shield sneaking in here. A look at Floating World Comics. I hope it came out okay. I'm actually going to go on and visit Powell's City of Books while I'm here, although that's usually a bad idea on a Saturday. Too many tourists, but we'll see how it goes.
So what I did is I moved my car and parked a bit closer to Powell's City of Books. I could have walked from where I was parked, but given it was a rainy day and my parking ticket was up and I would have had to buy another one anyway, I just thought I'd move the car, and I parked in what's called the Park Blocks downtown, and from there walked like 3 blocks to Powell's City of Books. The lighting looked really cool to me, although now it doesn't look so cool in the video.
It's a downtown charter school.
So yeah,
My daughter could not get into. I really
this
wanted
is
her to.
this is kind of the edge of what you might call the Pearl District, where there used to be all these warehouses, and they tore most of them down. A few of them they gutted and rebuilt, but they've turned it into, I don't know, a very expensive part of town. So maybe I have this terrible flaw, it seems now, of seeing the Portland that used to be there and being angry at the Portland that's there now. So I probably shouldn't hold it against the modern Portland so much, but I miss the Portland of the 90s. So I want this area to be more rundown warehouses and places where bands practice and artists have lofts, and not where retired doctors go to live and have the urban lifestyle or something. And that's probably not all of whom live in that area, but that's how I kind of think of it. So I always loved this column. This was we just saw the back side of Powell's, which takes up a whole city block and is like 3.5 stories high. There's sort of some half-story sections, and then, where you step up halfway, and other ones where it's a full story up. And even though the amount of footage I put in here is going to seem endless to you, I only captured a portion of Powell's. There's some interesting sections I didn't get to. I went through the back door, so I never showed you the whole front section, which was probably chaotically filled with people anyway, and I was desperately trying to film here without catching people's faces on camera, well, except my own. But yeah, I was here as a Saturday at 5 o'clock in the evening, and it was loaded with people, except when I got up to the third floor. Then it was pretty quiet up there. So it was kind of tricky to try to shoot without catching people on camera too much. I think legally you're okay if people are out in public and you get them on your camera, but I'm not sure. But I just know I wouldn't want a sustained picture of me in some stranger's video posted on YouTube. But I think at most, I get a glancing shot at people's faces. Anyway, I was in the science fiction section. I'm just past the mystery and thrillers and westerns on my way to look at some of the graphic novels. There's a row or two of manga here, and then on the other side, the beginning of their adult graphic novel, American graphic novel section, or English language graphic novel section. There actually is a very large graphic novel for kids section and a very large young adult graphic novel section in separate parts of the store. So when you add it all together, they have a lot of graphic novels, but it's kind of scattered about. And in the heyday, when I used to hang out at Powell's, like often after work, in this cafe, which a lot of these graphic novels are in part of the cafe, this cafe attached or within Powell's. I don't remember there being a lot of graphic novels, so I think that's a change that happened sometime in the 2000s. I used to meet friends a lot and hang out in this cafe, and we would like grab a few books that interested us and put them on the table with us while we drank our coffee and stuff, sometimes looking through the books or reading bits of them, or just having them as totems in front of us to talk about books and bookish things. And a couple times I made friends who I just met at the cafe in Powell's. Most notably this guy who was an avid film fan who wanted to become a filmmaker, and he did eventually go off to film school, and we kind of lost touch. I saw him a few times after he left. He went to San Francisco for a film school, and last I knew he was off with some film crew in Europe. But I should try to look up. I assume he never ended up being a major director, or I would have known that. But, he wanted to be the next Quentin Tarantino, which was all the rave in the 90s, right? So, yeah, I'm very fond of Powell's, but it is weird now. I think what happened is in the early 2000s, they became a big online seller of used books, and then they got overtaken by other businesses, and then, or maybe that was even the late 90s, and then they eventually, they really had trouble. Like, they used to be known for having the highest paid bookstore clerks in the country, but then they had to ask people to take a pay cut and stuff. But now I kind of feel like in maybe the past 3 to 5 years, Portland's become such a focus of tourists. Now we're on the third floor where I said there weren't so many people. Portland's become such a focus of tourism that Powell's may be making a lot of money again because everyone comes here because it's the famous bookstore and they want to hang out at Powell's. I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, it's hard for me. I think I mentioned this when I went to their satellite store in another video of mine, a smaller store of theirs. It's hard for me to spend so much money at Powell's anymore because things are, even their used books are more expensive sometimes than online stuff. But here I found some Perry Rodin books. I like to collect those if they're in okay shape because I love the gray Moro covers, and I like the idea of Perry Rodin. And I found one double novel, and these were all at good prices, so I didn't feel like I was cheating myself by not going and searching for them online. And this thing, I had forgotten all about Cap Kennedy, but he was another guy who had one of these long series of science fiction novels. I never read Cap Kennedy before, and I found Cap Kennedy #1, so I couldn't resist that. So I'll try giving that a try. And then I found this remaindered book on sort of a visual history of science fiction, sort of. It seems like a weird mix of covering movies and books and comic books. And they even cover Batman, which I thought was odd because Batman's not science fiction. Superman is. I guess if you squint at Batman a certain way, he's science fiction because he's got so many gadgets. I don't know. I really like this cover. So anyway, I was very happy with those finds, so that's what I bought at Powell's itself. And just showing you, I just went on and on shooting footage, this is more of the third floor, so it's mostly deserted. Just wanting you to see how endless Powell's City of Books is. And so how tiny that other Powell's was by comparison. When I first moved to Portland, one of the first places I went to was Powell's, and that's probably, sealed the deal for me wanting to live to Portland. I was just visiting at the time, passing through. And then there were used bookstores just all over the place then, and all of those are out of business. Some of them put out of business by Powell's, I would guess. Anyway, I hope you guys have a good night. You're probably looking at a black screen now. I will talk to you later.